fandom, but today I'm going to be wearing the hat of writer. This little side project that Claudia and I started comes from this idea that there's no space in the fandom really for writers at this point, which to me never made sense because we come from books and we come from stories. So Wizards in Space, a space for wizard writers, literary magazine, is meant to combat that and give young and emerging writers a place to be heard and have some new voices kind of emerge from the fandom. So we'll be reading some of the things that I would like to see in Wizards in Space Literary Magazine. So if you want to donate or talk to me about some of the cool perks, there's going to be a Snitch Witch perk. So you should try to check that out. Somebody once told me that I don't name my pieces, and they liked that because it meant I was never done with them. So this piece doesn't have a title. Sorry to bring it down a little bit, but see how this goes. Looking at you was like trying to read the clouds. Grayscale clouds meant rain. Low clouds meant I wouldn't have much room to think that day. Dark clouds in the distance meant the storm would be here by nightfall. White clouds said, it's going to be a beautiful day. And sometimes I could see the shapes in you. I could see rockets and daisies and puppy dog faces and crescent moons. I could see what looked like Texas, and I could see the airplanes passing through you. I could see what seemed like a future. Yet sometimes, when I looked at you, there wasn't a single cloud in the sky at all. I'm a risk taker. I order hot tea during turbulence. I eat food that's been left out overnight. And sometimes I'd call you at 3 in the afternoon, even though you were at work. And sometimes I'd wake you up at 3 in the morning just so you could see me cry. Just so you could see the story behind my scars. Just so I could see if your love for me differed depending on the sun. And there are these moments when I stood in front of you, wearing nothing but my stories and my scars, and this rhythm began pounding in my head, and it began beating instead of my heart, and it went, do I matter? 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 And it was this pitter-patter in my head over and over again. Do I matter? 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 Do I matter to you? And still, to this day, I hear the inflection in your voice, and I see my reflection in your eyes, and I feel like my heart is racing, but it's not, and I feel like my mind is racing, but it's not, and I feel like my heart is stuck, it's not, and I feel like my brain is stuck, it's not, I feel trapped, and I am, and I feel like no one understands. And I couldn't understand how I could feel so big standing next to airplanes, yet so small standing next to you. And I couldn't understand how sometimes looking at you was like trying to read the clouds, and how sometimes there wasn't a single cloud in the sky at all. Thank you. A little bit different than All-Star. A little bit different. This piece does have a title. It's called. I'm not even gonna talk about this piece. It's called 7 Potters. I was 7 days from 17 when we first met. Your age didn't seem to matter, like a stained green marker whiteboard math class lesson. Numbers faded, yet there. Erased, yet permanent. Distracting, yet ignored. Seen, yet unseen. At my first convention, I was told, don't become a fandom slut. Don't be like those other girls. I was 7 days from 17. Every time you looked at me, I felt better. Not better in the way where it made me happier, settled my stomach, or soothed whatever needed soothing. When you looked at me, it made me feel better than everyone else in the room. When you walked by me at shows and touched my hip as you went by, I soaked in the jealous glares of every single person that noticed. I felt better. That changed, some where, some year, some con. Don't you have a girlfriend? I texted you one night after you failed to lure me into your room. I sat in the elevator and I rode to each and every floor. The doors opened and closed, and I was too tired to move, yet too stubborn to give up on the night. So the elevator started again at the bottom, and I stared at my friends as your answers rolled in. It took 5 floors before I realized how good you were at denial, and it took 9 floors before I realized how good you were at manipulation, and you told me I misunderstood, that I was wrong, and how dare I. You set your guitar on fire during your set that night, and I whispered, set yourself on fire next time. I had no idea you were already burning. It was silence after that. I had been let go, forgotten, spared. But I thought we were friends, and I thought our conversations meant something to you, and I thought this was going to go somewhere, and I thought this community mattered to you, and I thought I mattered to you. It was 2010. I was 20 years old. You placed your hands on each of my shoulders and displaced me from your path. I don't have time for you right now, you said. Later that night, your chords played into the crowd, and I thought, I want everyone to know what you're really like. Yet there were people in that same crowd who did know, who knew worse than me. But silence was the way then, being popular was the way then, letting him loved and be loved and liked in return for our compliance was the way then. Our community skated on surface level positivity because surely it was better than breaking the ice. Years later, I sat on that rooftop in London and you called me your friend. It was the first time you spoke to me in 6 years and I laughed. We are not friends, I said. You were finally seeing what I could have been all along, that the 16-year-old girl you gave a back rub to in a Toronto hotel room turned into a writer, a leader, a speaker, a musician. That she had turned into all the things you called yourself. That I had figured out how to harness the power that you betrayed. That the people you hurt the most learned to harness the power of love and friendship and honesty and humble creativity. The worst thing is, what you did to me wasn't even the worst you had in store. But now, together, even if you disguised yourself within 7 Potters, we would know who the imposter was. You can't don the lightning bolt scar and call yourself a hero, call yourself a marauder, and try and claim that you're a martyr. Not anymore. We won't let you. Time's up. Your polyjuice potions run out. I'd like to introduce Claudia. Her favorite song is All Star.
Hi. Before I do anything, I just wanted to thank Brian for creating and curating this space. I have been listening to Wizard Rock since I was like 7, 8, 9 years old. I'm 21 now, as Matt so brilliantly announced. I've been 21 for a month now. Today's not my birthday. But because for circumstances that I'll get into in the second piece I read tonight, I couldn't make it to cons or Wizard Rock shows ever. And by the time I could, I felt like I had shown up and everything was done. And then I was so wrong because people like Brian put so much effort into making sure that this community has spaces together. And then I wanted to thank all of you for showing up to this basement on a Saturday night when you could be partying in ways that, as the youth say, are fire emoji. And I wanted to thank Olivia, who's been just my big sister and collaborator. It's true, I made her a button last weekend that says Big Sister Olivia, so you can't ever dispute that. It's really meaningful to me that we're still showing up, we're still creating things, new bands are still debuting. I don't know if, Sam's down here. Sam just played what I think, and I will still believe is his first live show at Flitwick and the Charmers, and it feels like when I first listened to Draco and the Malfoys or Harry and the Potters, and I felt like I was in Hogwarts basements. Anyway, I wish I had something as lyrical or composed as Olivia just presented, and her work is so important. But I have this job, if any of you don't know already, if you follow the Harry Potter Alliance online anywhere at all, I am the little elf behind the curtain on social media. We just ran not our first conference, but what felt like our first conference, and I napped for a whole week. I don't know what day it is, I don't know where I am, I don't know how I got here. So I'm just going to read some old blog posts, 2 of them. The first one is about this little band called Downtown Boys, and it's about how important representation is. It feels kind of intimidating to read this in this room right now, as you'll soon find out, but I think it's important, and I hope you get something from it, even if you can't directly relate to its words. Where's the beginning of this? Okay, cool. Hi. It's called She's Brown, She's Smart, which is from one of their songs, which I urge you to listen to. It's so important and so fun. Anyway, this year has been all firsts. And whenever I make references to time in these pieces, these were written like in December of last year, not right now. Anyway, this year has been all firsts, from first grilled cheese sandwich to first apartment to first Christmas. That's true, Alora can testify. Tonight marked my first show since moving to Providence, first time seeing a lineup composed entirely of girl-fronted bands, first time seeing Downtown Boys live. First time seeing Downtown Boys live meant first time seeing a Latina-fronted band and first time seeing a band performing songs in Spanish, which is to say, first time seeing all of myself in a band, not just what I've chosen to be and to love, but what I've always been, even when I've tried to lock it away. I immigrated to America at 5 years old and immediately began assimilating. As I learned English, I deliberately stopped learning the finer points of Spanish, and to this day, I can't write in my first language. I worked hard to change the way my mouth moved around words so my accent didn't ever show through if I could help it. I dropped any interest or habit that might have marked me as un-American. I was good at most of this, and I was rewarded for it in school and out of school, and because I didn't know better, I was proud. In my Miami high school, white students were a statistical minority, but cultural pride was something only refs, a derogatory word for new Americans, short for refugees, carried, and bearing flags or accents was tantamount to bearing letras escarlatas, scarlet letters. One time, in journalism camp, a girl told me, oh, you don't look Hispanic, you look normal. By the way, that girl was in this MTV show about like high school newspapers that I had watched for all 4 years of my high school newspaper life, and the whole time I was like, I've seen your life in 7 seasons on MTV. Her mom was the editor-in-chief or teacher or whatever, and I was like, I know you, go away. And because I didn't know better, I took it as a compliment. People always told me I could be a writer someday, but I only ever daydreamed about novels published under white-sounding pen names. I only ever daydreamed about futures with all my colors stripped away, except my house colors, Gryffindor, FYI. Everything I've ever loved, the books, the music, the fandoms, has carried the requisite whiteness by default. I've grown up and have lived and live and will keep living and will die in the Harry Potter community, which is built on DIY ethics and constant empowerment, but only a week ago did I realize I could start a Wizard Rock thing of my own. Again, this was written in December as an update. That dream died with my guitar, which I broke after 2 weeks of owning it. Not my best moment. Anyway. The inescapable implication was always that I couldn't be Latina and anything I wanted to be, smart, nerdy, punk, loud, and on and on and on. So I always chose the other thing. Tonight, though, Downtown Boys tore through all of that, not for the first time, since they've headlined the soundtrack to my grappling with this stuff for a while, but with a new power in their analog presence. Their music and their message leave no room for internalized racism, internalized white supremacy, but it makes plenty for possibility. They put ampersands in your pocket. They help you unlearn. Here's what I am learning. You can grow up hearing about the concept of your potential, and you can read empowering words about people of color writ bold across the internet, Tumblr specifically, and you can see it in other people, but still count what you yourself feel capable of on one hand, still have fingers left over, still live in the gaps between what you're told and what you're shown and what you believe. The written word is important. It's how I built my life. I wrote my way out of every part of my story and into every part of my story. But the poison we internalize is not just fed to us in the written word, so we can't expect the written word alone to be its undoing. It needs to be all around us, above the fold, in songs, on vinyl, in motion, on stage, loud, unapologetic, electric, ablaze. You can't start a fire without a spark. Thank you. FYI, I looked straight at Rachel during that last line because she's wearing a Bruce Springsteen t-shirt, and that last line was unashamedly plagiarized from Bruce Springsteen. So the other piece I was going to read tonight was a piece about David Bowie and how Matt one time tried to explain to me who David Bowie was while I was wearing a David Bowie t-shirt, and how important David Bowie was in kind of building my backbone as a preteen in sixth grade, realizing that she wasn't entirely straight. But Matt made his soul set all-star for me, and then Lauren's set made me cry. So I'm going to read an excerpt from a piece I wrote about 2015, which was like the fullest and most meaningful and weirdest year of my life. Not exclusively because, but including because, that makes no sense, I'm a writer, whatever. Because I left this house. I grew up in an abusive house, and moved here to Providence. Not gonna lie, most of the reason I moved to Providence was because I didn't want to miss the September house show. So it's pretty special to me that my first time ever reading anything I've read aloud is in the house show like half a year later. I moved in with Matt and Lauren for 2 months while I found my apartment and figured out how to be a person in this world. And the piece is like 30 minutes long. I'll post it in the Facebook group if you want to read the whole thing. I don't know you would, but this is just like a tiny excerpt, and it goes out to Matt and Lauren, who are somewhere caring for the new life they have brought into this world. Anyway, it also goes out to like every single one of you. But a few weeks ago, I watched Matilda for the first time since I was a kid, and I ended up having a panic attack because seeing how Matilda's father treated her felt like watching hidden camera footage from my life. This was the year I escaped that. I left Privet Drive. When I emailed Matt asking what he thought about me moving to Providence, he told me I could live with him and Lauren while I got settled in. I dodged the offer because I didn't think I deserved it. He insisted. I caved. I flew in on September 2nd and moved into the room that is now Rory's nursery. For the very first time, I was home. Not for a weekend at GeekyCon, not for a week, not for fleeting moments in a crowd, but for 2 whole months. On ordinary days, we had dinner together just about every night. We watched movies and television and went to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings and went grocery shopping and went to Target, where we bought matching plaid because that's who Matt and I are. We went to the zoo and to food trucks, and we marked the end of summer with a campfire I can still smell on the hat I wore. We played a lot of Dominion. We used the word family in ways I thought would never apply to me. Even in that first email reply, Matt told me I had a family in Providence. Those are still some of my favorite words. Here's why I revisited Matilda in the first place. I remembered being so envious as a kid that she had a Miss Honey, who mentored her at school and told her she was proud of her and became her family. I wanted that so badly. I wanted a Miss Honey. I wanted a half-giant knocking down my door. I wanted the Weasleys at my window. I didn't understand why they wouldn't rescue me. Living with Matt and Lauren reminded me of those final scenes in Matilda and of Harry's first summer at the Burrow. It wasn't a little girl's escapism anymore. It was real. I was home and I felt cared for and welcomed and supported and encouraged. I felt loved. So I rented the movie and I saw myself in every single scene, not just the first few. Yeah. Actual Wizard Rock badass feminist person Ashley Hamill is up next.